This video will give you an introduction to proofs. The first thing that you should have gotten was this reference sheet, and if you went along each of the theorems, you should have marked all the congruence statements for all of these. So here we have side, side, side. So look through this. I'm going to just kind of zoom into this, look through, and make sure that you marked everything correctly on that. You can pause the video if you need to. The other thing that's really helpful in this reference sheet is this reasons sides are congruent and then reasons angles are congruent. This is really the list of what you are going to want to go through when you're doing a proof. And the difficult thing about a proof is that sometimes we don't know what our next step is, and these are really big clues into what your next steps will be. And then down here we also have the CP/CTC. So I'm going to zoom in on that, check and make sure that you had all that correct. And then I also made a note, remember that we are not going to use SSA or AAA as a theorem. Okay, you should also have this proofs packet, and this packet's really important because it has all of the 18 proofs that you are going to be responsible for knowing. And I just want to use this video to kind of give you a little idea of how we write out the proofs and the format of them, and then I just want to get you started with how we think through a proof. So you're going to have this packet and it will have all of the proofs listed on it, and what I would like for you to do is do the proofs in your own notebook. So you're going to have this as a reference because hopefully you will be working these proofs more than one time, and you will do it in your notebook once, and then you can just go to a clean page and work the proof again. So let's start with the first one here. I've kind of grouped them together based on the theorem that you're going to use. So this first one here is from side, side, side. As you're looking at the proof, you see that there's a given statement, and the given statement is what they are telling us we already know, and then the prove statement is what we want to prove. And so for this proof, we want to prove that triangle PQR is congruent to STR. So we're going to take the given statement, and then we're going to also come to our own conclusions based on the given statement and the diagram to prove, using the side, side, side theorem, that these two triangles are congruent. When you're setting up the proof, I would really like it to be very specific as far as how you're doing this. So go to a place in your notebook where you can start a nice clean page and label it proofs. And the numbering is going to be important so you can find these proofs later. So they start with 1 here and they go all the way to 18. So this is the way you're going to know what proof belongs to which statement. So make sure you're keeping track of that. So we're going to put number 1 here. For each of these, we're going to do what's called a 2-column proof. So we are going to put the word statements and reasons. We're going to put a line underneath that, and then we're going to put another line that kind of tees down. And for all these proofs, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 lines, you'll have enough. Not all of them need that much. So this is your setup for every single proof. The first thing we want to do is we want to look at our given statement. And those are really the first steps of our proof. So we see our first given statement is that PQ is congruent to ST. So if I look over here at the diagram, I'm going to mark that PQ is congruent to ST. And I'm going to write that as my first statement. can see in this proof that there are actually three parts to our given statement. So we wrote PQ is congruent to ST, then we're also going to put that QR is congruent to RT, and then R is the midpoint of PS. Each of those are given, and so our reason is given. A general rule of thumb is that if you see a comma in the given statement, then maybe put the next item on another line. You can do this different ways. I mean, you could put everything on one line here if you wanted and put it as all is given and just have one line for that, but I think it's easier if you kind of break it out. So I also want to mark the other congruency things that we see here. So QR is congruent to RT. And then the last thing it tells us is that R is the midpoint of PS. So here's where we know we are going to take our next step based on this clue here that we have a midpoint. So if I think through what it means that R is the midpoint of PS, what it really means is that PR would be congruent to RS. So that's going to be my next step. So I'll put PR is congruent to RS. And my reason for that is going to be the definition of midpoint. At this point, I'm going to take a look at my triangles and all the information I have and decide, do I have enough information to prove that these two triangles are congruent? I do, because I have three side lengths, and I know by side, 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 I can prove them congruent. So my last step is to write this statement that I'm proving, and I think it's always good just to copy that statement down as is so that you get all the letters in the right spot. So these two triangles are congruent, and my reasoning for that is the side, side, side theorem, and we can just put SSS. And that's the end of the first proof there. The next proof we're going to do is number 4, so go ahead and get your paper all set up.